So I'm also going to deliver my talk in English, and I need to admit that English is also my second language. So if you have trouble in understanding my English, you can also understand my content in the slide. So no worries. But it's my honor to be here in this very special occasion. And today I would like to share with you exciting stories. It's about the digital medicine, and which I believe to be a new era of the healthcare. So why this is important? What is digital medicine? So let's go back to the time when there was no computer. So of course the word digital is about computers. And at the time when there was no computers, the medicine already been a very prosperous science. And for 100 years, the medicine is the science of pattern recognition. So for example, I show you these very beautiful paintings. The painting was made by a very famous neurobiologist, Dr. Kaha, in about more than 100 years ago. And at that time, there was no computer. He has only microscope. So he has to see through microscope to draw these different types of neurons in the brain. And these paintings really help us to understand the different types of neurons and layers and the brain structures, etc. So this is one type of pattern recognition that helps us to advance the medicine. And even at the earlier time, about more than 200 years ago, there was a physiologist, who is Stephen Hales, and in the United Kingdom. And he just did a very smart experiment, and he just simply used a glass tube. Maybe it's a little bit scary. He used a glass tube to pierce into the the carotid arteries located under the neck. And by doing so, he can observe the blood pressure, the fluctuation of the blood in the glass tube. So we know that the blood flows when the heart beats. So by doing so, he observed the pattern of blood pressure fluctuations, and its also association with the respiration. So that is also a pattern recognition. And even in the earlier time, in the ancient time, the Chinese people already observed the abnormal behavior of the mental illness. So if you look into the literature, in the 2,400 years ago, in the Chinese medicine literature, they already document the abnormal behavior of the mental illness like schizophrenia and bipolar disorders such as mania. So I tell you this is because the medicine is really about the pattern recognition. And these were all done by the human brain. So we don't need computers, and we can observe many patterns, and we can find out interesting things through this pattern recognition. So with the advancement of technology, so in recent 100 years, we have many new technologies. So for example, we now understand electricity. So in 100 years ago, Dr. Eiffelman, which is a cardiologist, he invented a machine that can record the electrical activities of human heart. So with this machine, we are able to observe new patterns. So for example, now we know there are lots of the cardiac arrhythmias based on the electrocardiogram, which is a very important component in the hospital. And also, with the discovery of the X-ray, we are able to see through bodies without cutting into inside, which is very scary. Using X-rays, we are now able to identify many patterns. For example, such as chest X-ray, which is a very important skill for every medical student when they are going to the hospital. They need to identify the pneumonia, such as shown in these images, just based on the chest X-ray image. So this is also a pattern recognition. And for example, of course, in the 1953, the discovery of the DNA by the Dr. Watson and Crick, the discovery of DNA really enabled us to see to see things at the very tiny levels, molecular levels. And so the DNA, the sequencing really help us to identify the true cause of many genetic disorders, such as cystic fibrosis or Huntington disease. So I tell you this is because with the advancement of technologies, we are able to see more patterns. But these patterns are understood by the human brain, not computers. But at the same time, I want to tell you another interesting story, because in the hospital, just like I said, we gather lots of the pattern data. For example, from the microscope, from the X-ray images, from the ECGs, electrocardiogram, from every biochemistry profile data. We use these patterns to find out a new disease, a new subtype, maybe just new symptoms, syndromes. So the modern medicine is really about the pattern recognition. As I said, this was done by the human brain. But 18 years ago, there was an interesting story developed at the same time. So at the time of the World War II, probably you have to see the movie The Imitation Game, right? So the Imitation Game in this movie is about Dr. Turing in the World War II. So in the World War II, at the time, the German military prevails the Europe land and also the North Atlantic seas. So at the time, the United Kingdom and allies were desperate to find out a solution to decode the secret messages from the German armies. So if they can decode the German military's messages, they are able to do something to reverse the course of the war. So, but at that time, there was no computer too. So what did they do? They just recruit lots of people who are capable of calculations. And Dr. Turing think this is so inefficient to recruit so many people to do such calculation. You want to invent a calculator to help understand the patterns in the secret message. So his success. So that's his invention really helps the war success of the allies and the invention of the computers. So this is the first time we don't need human brain to understand patterns. We can use calculator or computers to understand patterns. So with the evolution of computer, we all know that in the beginning, the computer is so huge, it occupies this entire room, and it's very noisy, and it's very efficient. But still, the computer can still recognize the patterns and decode the secret message from the German army. But now, everyone has a smartphone, right? So we have a smartphone, and each smartphone, the power inside the smartphone is much more greater than the computer 18 years ago. So the first revolution of the medicine would be the digitization. So the digital medicine, the first step is to want to digitize everything we have in the hospital. So for example, we need to digitize the chest X-ray. We can see the chest X-ray images on the screen. We can also use a very simple device to record our electrical activities of the heart and show on the smartphone. So it's a power of the computation can help us to digitize everything. And also the medical record. So electronic medical record contains everything we perform in the hospital. So all these digitizations, technologies can lead to a very big healthcare data. And this healthcare data comes from like health insurance program, like so every one of us have received the universal health care. So when you go to hospital to see a doctor, the government will record the detail of every visit or every procedures you have. And the data also comes from the electronic medical record in the hospital. And also, there's also very unique data that comes from the hospital, which is the physiological data. So in the hospital, we record the heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, or blood oxygenation that can help us understand the condition of the patient. And also, we have data from the pharmaceutical companies. We have lots of data from the clinical trials. We need to understand if the drug is effective or not. And also, we have lots of imaging data, not only from the chest X-ray, but we have from the MRI or CT or ultrasound. Also, we have lots of genetic data. So these data are related to our healthcare and forms a very large database. So in 2013, there were already 153 exabytes of healthcare data worldwide. And 1 exabyte equals to 1 billion gigabytes. And by the 2020, which is the next year, then the data will be growing to the 2,314 exabytes, which is more than 15 times in the 2013 we have. So I want to show you an example. With such big amount of data, it's no longer possible for human brain to understand patterns. So that's why I will introduce the history of computer evolution to you. I just show you one example because I'm a psychiatrist and also I'm practicing sleep medicine. So in sleep medicine, we diagnose patients by doing this kind of study, which is called polysomnograph studies. And the patient need to stay in the hospital for overnight. And we will connect patient to different kind of devices, such as the electroencephalogram, which we call the brain wave. Also, we record the airflow through the nasal cavities. We also record the muscle activities. We also record the blood oxygenations. And all these data can be shown on the screen just like this one. This is just 30 seconds of the sleep data we gathered from the patient during the night. And you're probably be wondering that we can use computer to help us understand patterns. And the reality is no. We still rely on people to review every 30 seconds of the sleep records and to identify a very special moment like this one. So this is showing when people is dreaming and his eye has a very special direction of movement. But this is very efficient because when people perform the polysomnograph in the hospital, we gather lots of data, but we still rely on people to review every 30 seconds of the records and to determine whether the patient has some problems about sleep. So the data is just like the pepperoni pizza. We have such big data, and for the human beings, we can only eat one piece at a time. But our goal is to find out the pepperoni, which is the delicious one. But even if we find the pepperoni, probably we just need some time to find the most crispy one, which is the most delicious one. And in the big data, this small pepperoni can give us insight about the information we have. So that's really the challenge we face nowadays, because our human brain is not capable of dealing with lots of such huge amount of data. So that's why the second step of digital medicine is to combine the computation power and our human brain. So in the medicine, is an increasing trend of developing artificial intelligence applications, which is AI applications. So let me show you an interesting example, because this is not about AI. This slide is not about AI. But we use the Google search engine or search engine every day, right? If you want to search something, just type some keywords in your browsers, and the search engine will return you some result. And in 2017, a group of pathologists, they want to understand whether or not they can search images on the Google and see if the Google can return the images that comparable to the image they upload to the Google. So for example, the other one is the adenocarcinoma images, which is the cancer pathology. And they upload this image to the Google search, and they found that 50% of the returned results are actually cancer images. So it's amazing. And even if you just upload a benign lesion like leiomyoma, then the result, Google can return you 83% of correction result. So even without AI, just search and compare the similarity of images, the computer can already do a very good job of pattern recognition. So that's why we really can use the AI or deep learning to help us understand more patterns in the medical data. So for example, the Google has used AI to detect lymph node metastatic breast carcinoma. And they can use AI to locate the actual locations of the tumor cells. And this kind of pathology application has been approved by the United States FDA to be used in the clinical practice. So that's a major breakthrough. Also, in the Stanford University, they already established a very large open data source of the chest X-ray. And using this data set, they already developed a deep learning algorithm that can beat radiologists. So that's also a major breakthrough, because we, as the medical professionals, we are trained to identify patterns. But imagine that some days the AI can do a better job than you. Then that is a little bit scary, right? Let me go through, continue. So for example, the other IT tech companies already developed a technology to identify the location of the bone fractures. And also in psychiatry, we are able to use the facial expression to detect whether the patient has depression or not. And of course, in eye medicine, then we can use the fundoscopy images and to detect the diabetic retinopathy in certain populations. And of course, we can use the image analysis and deep learning to detect the skin cancers. And excitingly, my lab, our lab, in this university, we just developed an AI-based diagnostic platforms and just won this year's Future Technology Breakthrough Award issued by the government. So using images, we can do many things. It is all about the pattern recognition. And so, not so exciting, because from the 2014, there are already more than 30 AI applications being approved by the United States FDA to be used in the clinical practice. And these AI applications covers the areas from cardiology, psychiatry, endocrinology, and radiology, and different kinds of medical fields. So there are more and more applications that are being used in the clinical practice. And this help wonder the question. So if AI does better than human, then will someday that AI will replace human? I think my answer is no, and also is answered by this crazy entrepreneur, Elon Musk. So he has a crazy idea that we know that computer is very good at pattern recognition, and it is very fast, very efficient. Is that possible that we can combine the power of human thinking, which is very nonlinear, and the power of the computation, which is very fast and efficient? So he developed a neural link technique to try to implant a very tiny electrode into the human brain, and these electrodes can be possibly connected to the machine. So not only Probably in the future, not only we can read mind through these tiny electrodes, but we can also connect to a machine that can combine the power of the AI and the power of our human brain. So maybe in the just future, when you go to hospital, you will see the digital doctors. But I think in the reality, coming soon, we will just use every kind of digital technology to improve our healthcare. But I want to emphasize, although we talk lots about the digital technologies, the core value of the medicine is the human. Then we really emphasize the doctor-patient relationship, and it's about the human in the medicine. So our country, the Taiwan, will be one of the becoming a top destination for artificial intelligence in Asia. I think not only in Asia, we really have a good chance to lead a major breakthrough in artificial intelligence. So the future is you, and welcome aboard. Thank you very much.